The government goes on a mission to bring down the mob. But it can't stop Mafia boss John Gotti.
Not guilty.
Now, the pressure is on the FBI.
The only way you're going to put him in jail, you have to capture his discussions.
The payoff is big when Gotti is finally caught on tape. And then he's betrayed by his underboss.
We played chess, and he lost.
It took them 7 rats to kill 100 people to finally frame me.
The questions and answers behind the battle to bring down John Gotti. Next on The Final Report. Monday, December 16th, 1985, 5:26 p.m. New York City. As the first day of the work week draws to an end, the sounds of semi-automatic gunfire shatter the evening rush hour. Outside a restaurant called Spark Steakhouse, 4 gunmen pull off a bold murder. They ambush 2 men getting out of a car. The victims are each hit 6 times. The killers then disappear into the crowd. The crime raises the first of many questions to be investigated by The Final Report. Why would anyone stage a double murder in such a public place? The killings happen in the heart of New York City, in Midtown Manhattan, on East 46th Street. When police arrive, they find the bodies of 2 men lying in pools of blood next to their town car.
Where were they hit? They were hit in the head and in the body.
New York City Police Detective Jimmy Turnbull says at first the identities of the victims weren't clear.
We had a report of several gentlemen running away from the crime scene wearing Russian hats. People believe that we possibly may have had 2 diplomats from the United Nations shot.
Detectives quickly discover that the dead men aren't diplomats, but a pair of high-level mobsters. Paul Castellano, or Big Paul, is the top boss of New York's largest mafia organization, the Gambino crime family. It's named for the late Carlo Gambino, one of the city's most legendary godfathers. The other victim is Thomas Bellotti, the Gambino underboss, or second in command. The boss and underboss sit atop a hierarchy of captains, soldiers, and associates. All of them give part of their illegally earned money to the group's top officials. New York has 5 powerful mafia families: Gambino, Genovese, Bonanno, Lucchese, and Colombo. They are part of a secret organization with influence in at least 25 states across the country. It's known as Cosa Nostra, which means our thing. The mob uses bribes and violence to control politicians and the big 4 labor unions, the Teamsters, longshoremen, laborers, and hotel and restaurant employees. Cosa Nostra wields its power to secure favorable contracts and kickbacks in many major industries. In New York, the effects of this corruption are felt throughout the city. How does the mafia affect life in America's largest city? In the 1980s, the mob's power and murderous behavior compelled the FBI to make fighting organized crime its top priority. But agents like George Gabriel are having trouble gaining the upper hand.
They were a serious threat, and a lot of violence was being conducted by them. There were bodies all over the place, especially in the 80s, early 80s.
December 18th, 1985, 2 days after the murders of Castellano and Bellotti. Newspapers suggest the killings may be linked to a flashy, reputed Gambino captain named John Gotti. Why would Gotti have his own boss and underboss killed? December 24th, 1985. Less than a week later, New York police take these photographs of some 200 suspected gangsters meeting with Gotti here at one of his favorite Manhattan hangouts, the Ravenite Social Club. Gotti appears to be taking over as the new Gambino family boss. His impeccable appearance and $1,000 tailored suits quickly earn him a media nickname, the Dapper Don. At the time, Gotti is already under investigation for a variety of other crimes. The investigations are part of a nationwide mafia crackdown, spearheaded by the FBI. Among those caught in the Bureau's dragnet are the bosses of New York's Lucchese, Colombo, and Genovese crime families.
Push over there instead of me. I'll be there.
In Manhattan, U.S. Attorney Rudolph Giuliani makes the battle against the mob one of the top priorities of his office.
But I think we can end the mafia as an institution in the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years, by keeping this kind of pressure on them.
Gotti's new role as Gambino boss makes him a primary target for numerous law enforcement agencies. They are competing to be the first to bring him to justice for crimes ranging from assault to racketeering to murder. 2 investigations soon lead to trials. March 1986. Queens, New York. In the first trial, state prosecutors accuse Gotti and one of his associates of felony assault. The DA built the case on the allegations of a refrigerator repairman named Romuald Pajcik. He claims the 2 men beat him up over a parking dispute. In court, however, Pajcik shocks prosecutors. On the stand, he changes his story and testifies he doesn't remember who attacked him. He tells reporters that he has no memory of his earlier allegation.
If I did go stand there and say that this is Mr. Gotti and this is Mr. Coletta, they assaulted me and robbed me, I'm not sure.
The judge dismisses the case. Why does the victim change his story? After his court victory, Gotti's press-friendly image captures the attention of the public. Many view the mob boss as a throwback to the flashy gangster era of Al Capone. As in Capone's time, mobsters around Gotti frequently disappear or turn up dead. One is Gambino soldier Robert DiBernardo, nicknamed DB, who suddenly goes missing in June of 1986. September 25th, 1986. Brooklyn, New York. A second Gotti trial gets underway, this time in federal court. Gotti and 6 co-defendants are accused in connection with several crimes, including racketeering and murder. Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Jackalone and co-prosecutor John Gleason are working with the help of several agencies, including the NYPD and the Drug Enforcement Agency. Though the FBI initially supported the investigation, the Bureau has since withdrawn its backing.
The FBI was the opposite of involved. They weren't helpful. They did not want anything to do with our case.
Considering the Bureau's commitment to fighting organized crime, why does the FBI refuse to help federal prosecutors? As the trial stretches on, Prosecutor Jackalone calls on several low-level mob turncoats. Each government witness confirms Gotti's role in the Gambino organization and his ties to serious crimes. Gotti's attorney, Bruce Cutler, attacks the credibility of these witnesses. In court, he calls them career criminals and bums. Outside, he singles out one such witness, Edward Maloney.
A drug dealer, a liar, and a lowlife. His testimony is of very little consequence to anybody but the government who's made this deal with him.
March 13th, 1987. Gotti waits for the jury to decide his fate. To some, he appears suspiciously calm. The jury finds Gotti and his henchmen not guilty on all counts. It is a stunning blow to prosecutors.
We thought it was going to be a conviction. They blew us out. Everybody's acquitted of everything. And it was devastating.
Why does the jury find Gotti not guilty? Reporter Jerry Capisi covered the case for the New York Daily News. He says the acquittal sent Gotti's popularity soaring to new heights.
As a reporter, it was a great story. I mean, you had a guy who thumbed his nose at the feds and beat the case. Everybody wanted more and more information about him.
What do you think of the verdict, Mr. Gotti? Right into comments on? How do you feel?
After the verdict, Gotti returns to his Howard Beach neighborhood in Queens. He's now looked upon as a Robin Hood-style folk hero, a poor kid turned charming mobster whom the government can't convict.
He's just a good man. He's a good family man.
A man who throws lavish 4th of July neighborhood block parties and donates to local charities.
You don't think he belongs in jail? No way. He's loved around here. He's like a hero of Howard Beach.
Gotti's ability to deflect criminal charges earns him a new nickname in the press, that of the Teflon Don. The nickname ups the ante for FBI investigators, such as Supervisor Bruce Mao. He has led the Bureau's Gambino investigative squad since 1980.
Because of his publicity, his notoriety, there's a lot of pressure on us to get John Gotti, to put him in jail.
Some in the Bureau blame the media's breathless coverage of Gotti for making their job more difficult. How does the media spotlight on Gotti hurt the FBI's investigation? After watching Gotti beat 2 separate cases, Mao orders Special Agent George Gabriel to launch a fresh Gotti investigation. They decide to try something no other agency has been able to do: catch Gotti clearly discussing his crimes on tape.
For a boss, his crimes really are his discussions. He's not going to be on the street again pulling the trigger. He's going to be giving orders to others to go do that for him.
January 1988. Gotti has moved his headquarters from the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Queens to the Ravenite Social Club in Manhattan's Little Italy neighborhood. It is here that he was spotted meeting with Gambino family members after the murder of Paul Castellano. The congested neighborhood gives the FBI an opportunity. They can watch over Gotti's headquarters without being seen. The FBI investigation heats up, and the answers to our questions when the final report continues. February 1988. John Gotti is riding high. He's the boss of the Gambino crime family, taking over after the assassination of Paul Castellano. And he's just beaten not 1, but 2 indictments on criminal charges.
You think the government's going to frame you?
You guys in Giuliani should be in church.
Now the FBI is determined to get the Teflon Don by gathering enough evidence to put him away for life. Under the direction of FBI Supervisor Bruce Mao, a video surveillance team goes to work. They'll be monitoring Gotti's new Manhattan headquarters, the Ravenite Social Club, from an apartment 2 blocks away.
But had a direct line of sight down Mulberry Street, over the trees, over the lights, right to the front door of the club. And so we could see anybody coming and going.
Gotti begins holding regular meetings at the Ravenite.
It was a great break for us. He had these people coming any number of nights, 5 nights a week. And that really was contradictory to what the mob did before that. They understood meetings only helped the feds. The fewer meetings you had, the less chance you had of being caught.
Considering the likelihood of drawing FBI attention, why does Gotti start holding these regular meetings?
You'd see 2 and 3 wise guys walking out of the club, having a brief conversation, and then going right back inside again.
The FBI is building a list of Gambino family members. Frank Locascio, also known as Frankie Loke, and Salvatore Gravano, a.k.a. Sammy the Bull. Though the surveillance tapes, recorded from 2 blocks away, show mobsters having conversations, they contain no audio. Can these silent tapes help build a case against Gotti? February 26, 1988. In the middle of the night, 2 FBI agents break into the Ravenite Social Club by picking the lock on a door. Once inside, they plant an audio bugging device in the back room, above this table. They hope to finally capture incriminating conversations on tape. But when the agents listen in, they can barely make out the conversation between Gotti and his men.
There were too many people in too small a room. It was like the Tower of Babel, too many voices, and you really couldn't hear what they were saying.
The agents return to reposition the bug and add a noise filter. But a new dilemma arises. June 1988. Gambino soldiers passing time at Gotti's former headquarters in Queens discover a bug left over from a prior New York State task force investigation. The FBI soon notices a change in Gotti's routine at his new headquarters, the Ravenite. They can still see him coming and going and can catch some conversations, but every so often, Gotti's voice disappears.
It became apparent he was going someplace else within that building, where we couldn't see, obviously, to have some conversations.
Where is Gotti going to hold these conversations? January 23rd, 1989. For the third time since Castellano's murder, Gotti is indicted, this time by the state of New York. He's accused of ordering an attack on a carpenters union boss named John O'Connor. FBI investigators are still building their own federal case against Gotti. Agents don't think much of the state's main evidence, a set of 3-year-old audio tapes from Gotti's former headquarters in Queens.
We had those tapes, and the tapes were very difficult to hear, and we didn't think they were really going to be able to ultimately deliver what the state needed to convict John.
At trial, the DA plays one recording in which Gotti can be heard telling an associate O'Connor's name and address.
John O'Connor. John O'Connor, 608. 16-something Broadway.
But in another recording, Gotti's words are more difficult to discern. The state argues that Gotti is saying, quote, "We're gonna bust him up," meaning he's going after O'Connor. Defense attorney Bruce Cutler insists the tapes are largely inaudible. He accuses investigators of creating their own interpretation just to make a case against Gotti.
You say you heard that on the tape, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what was in Mr. Gotti's mind when he said that?
Yes, sir.
You read his mind?
I think it's fairly obvious.
Do you know what's in his mind now, Investigator Wright?
No, sir, I do not.
Take a look at him and tell me what he's thinking about.
I wish I knew.
The defense also has a powerful witness, the alleged victim himself, union boss John O'Connor. He takes the stand and insists he has no idea who attacked him. February 9th, 1990. The verdict is broadcast live on TV.
Do you find the defendant, John Gotti, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
For the third time in 4 years, Gotti beats the rap and goes free. He returns to the Ravenite, where he is mobbed by fans and reporters. Once again, the press portrays him as a celebrity mobster whose guile and charisma put him above the reach of the law. That week, Daily News reporter Jerry Capisi interviews the head of the FBI's organized crime unit, Jules Bonavolenta.
He said John Gotti knows that he hasn't been prosecuted yet by the full force of the FBI. When that happens, he won't be acquitted and he'll go down for the count.
Why is the FBI so confident? December 11th, 1990. 10 months after the latest not guilty verdict, FBI agents and New York police detectives raid the Ravenite. They arrest Gotti and his top lieutenants, Frankie Locascio, and Sammy the Bull Gravano. The men face racketeering charges that include allegations of murder. Special Agent George Gabriel is assigned to transport the Teflon Don to the FBI's Manhattan office. As they drive through Little Italy, Gotti brags that he'll beat this case too.
I said, well, that's been your luck in the past, but I don't necessarily think it's going to hold true. I'll bet you anything. I said, I tell you what, how about we bet loser leaves town? You don't have to pack, because where you're going, you're not going to need any clothes.
The answers to our questions and Gotti's showdown with the FBI are next on The Final Report. January 21st, 1992. Brooklyn, New York. After walking away clean from 3 successive trials, Mafia kingpin John Gotti is back in court for what is called the gangster case of the century. Gotti and his 2 top lieutenants, Frank Locascio and Sammy Gravano, now face a wide variety of federal charges. Among them is the assassination of previous Gambino crime boss, Paul Castellano. February 17th, 1992. At trial, Assistant U.S. Attorney John Gleason presents the jury with excerpts from 6 hours of Gotti's most secret conversations. On one recording, Despite background music, Gotti can be heard talking about the secret criminal organization Cosa Nostra.
This is going to be a Cosa Nostra till I die. Be it an hour from now, be it tonight, or 100 years from now when I'm in jail. It's going to be a Cosa Nostra.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Patrick Cotter tells the final report how the tapes prove that Gotti ordered murders. One such crime was the assassination of Gambino soldier Robert DiBernardo, a.k.a. DB.
There was nothing, I think, that matched the moment when the jury actually heard Mr. Gotti say things like, when I killed DB, when I whacked DB.
DB got whacked. I knew why it was being done, and I whacked.
But perhaps the strongest evidence against Gotti comes through the words of one of his own, Gotti's second-in-command, Sammy the Bull Gravano. March 2nd, Gravano takes the stand. He has agreed to testify about mob secrets in exchange for a reduced sentence and a spot in the witness protection program. It is the first time ever that such a high-level mafia insider has agreed to break the mob's sacred code of omerta, or silence, and testify against his own boss. But after so many earlier Gotti legal victories, why would Gravano now break the mafia oath and turn against Gotti? For 9 days, Sammy the Bull reveals the inside story of the Gambino family's criminal activities. He admits ties to 19 murders. These include the Castellano hit, which he says was ordered by Gotti. Local TV reporter Pablo Guzman is in court and watches the jury's reaction.
This wasn't a guy that they wanted to invite for Thanksgiving dinner. You didn't like this guy. But it was the kind of that thing where you can't really turn away from looking at the train wreck.
On cross-examination, the defense attacks Gravano's credibility. They accuse him of telling lies to avoid prosecution for his murderous past. In light of his previous criminal record, how can the jury trust Gravano's testimony? April 2nd, 1992. After deliberating for less than 2 days, the jury reaches a verdict. For the crimes of murder, racketeering, and conspiracy, the jury finds John Gotti guilty on all counts. After 4 trials and numerous investigations, the Teflon Don is finally headed to prison.
Teflon is gone, the Don is covered with Velcro, and every charge in the indictment stuck. The mob, as we have known it, is on the way out.
Government officials predict John Gotti's trip to prison will be one of many more for the mob. Why is Gotti's conviction a turning point in the fight against Cosa Nostra? For many Gotti champions, including his daughter Victoria, it is difficult to accept the Don's new image, that of convicted felon.
My father is the last of the Mohegans. They don't make men like him anymore, and they never will.
June 23rd, sentencing day. A crowd of nearly 1,000 Gotti supporters gathers outside the courthouse to protest the conviction and demand that he be set free. Inside, a judge sentences him to life in prison without parole. The government hails the sentence as the end of a mighty era for Cosa Nostra. Still, the story of Gotti's rise and fall remains clouded with questions. How did the FBI finally succeed in getting Gotti? The final report now answers those questions, beginning with the mob's chokehold on the Big Apple. For decades, mafia families controlled several major industries throughout the country. The financial impact of this corruption is greatest in New York. How does the mafia affect life in America's largest city? It raises the price of everything, from what New Yorkers eat to where they live and work. The mafia extorts money from small business owners and industry leaders, forcing them to pay fees to the mob just to keep their goods and services flowing. These added expenses are passed on to consumers, costing them hundreds of millions of dollars each year.
If you ordered chicken in New York, the mob got a piece. If you had anything delivered by a truck, the mob got a piece. They had their fingers in a lot of pies.
In the 1980s, the largest and most influential of these mafia families is the Gambinos. Their leader is Paul Castellano.
Castellano ran the family like a Fortune 500 company. He was more of a businessman than your traditional gangster or mobster.
But Castellano is troubled by the behavior of one of his captains, John Gotti. Gotti earned his stripes after assisting with the murder of a rival gangster in a neighborhood bar. The mobster soon leads his own mafia crew, but Castellano is leery and views him as a troublemaker.
Gotti represented the rough and tumble street coarse Castellano. He wanted more refined people at the dinner table, and Gotti was the kind of guy that, was wiping his mouth like this.
Even so, the two seem to get along. But in 1985, Gotti has Castellano and Thomas Bellotti killed. Why would Gotti kill his own boss and underboss? Gotti's crew was dealing drugs, which Castellano prohibited. Gotti feared reprisals. 1983. Police record 3 of Gotti's soldiers talking about selling heroin and working for the mob. The recordings lead to the arrest of Angelo Ruggiero, John Carneglia, and Gotti's own brother, Gene. Castellano is furious and demands to hear the tapes.
This is a no-no. You're not supposed to get caught talking about mafia business, and you're not supposed to get caught talking about drugs.
Once Castellano finally gets the tapes, Gotti fears he'll be demoted, or worse. September 1985. Gotti reaches out to 10 of his closest allies, including Sammy the Bull Gravano, to rub out Castellano. 3 months later, Gambino family members loyal to Gotti gunned down Castellano and his underboss in front of a Manhattan steakhouse. Years later, in a television interview, Gravano described how he and Gotti watched the hit from a nearby car.
As soon as Paul opened up the door, I saw them white jackets all surrounding the car. They were shooting Paul. Tommy was actually watching Paul being shot, thinking which direction that he would run, probably, and they came across and shot him in the head.
The audacity of the crime left many observers wondering, why would anyone stage a double murder in such a public place? To make a bold statement to other mobsters and discourage retaliation.
This was somebody's bid for power. If they had kidnapped these guys, shot them, and dumped the bodies somewhere out in, a swamp, it wouldn't have made the play that it did.
By carrying out such a dramatic hit, Gotti put other mobsters on notice. They too can be killed anytime, anywhere. In this way, Gotti hopes to avoid a retaliatory hit. Under a long-standing mob rule, no one can murder a crime family boss without permission from the other Cosa Nostra bosses. After the murders, everyone involved vows to remain silent. Sammy the Bull will later betray this promise when he testifies against Gotti in court.
Master double-crosser. John's a double-crosser. I'm a master double-crosser. We played chess, and he lost.
More on the double dealings of Sammy the Bull Gravano, and more answers to our questions when the final report continues. March 1986. Queens, New York. A confident and stylish John Gotti walks into state court. The new reputed leader of the Gambino crime family is here to stand trial for felony assault. In this case, the victim is Romuald Pajcek. He claims Gotti and an associate beat him up over a parking dispute. When Gotti faces his accuser in court, however, Pajcek claims he has no memory of his attackers. The judge dismisses the case. Why did the victim change his story? It is likely he was threatened. Several days before the trial began, Pajcek tells a detective that his phone is ringing at all hours and that someone cut the brake lines on his van. In a case involving the mob, this is more than enough warning. Pajcek tells investigators he no longer wants to testify and goes into hiding. Prosecutors force him to take the stand, but ultimately, Pajcek's fear of mob retribution prompts him to claim he forgot the identity of his attackers.
The Pajcek case really wasn't a trial. That was the I Forgotti trial.
March 13th, 1987. John Gotti's second trial since becoming boss, this one in federal court, comes to an end. Once again, the mob boss beats the rap. After a 6-month trial, he's acquitted on all charges. Why did the jury find Gotti not guilty? because the case was fixed. This time, instead of intimidating the key witness, Cosa Nostra was able to buy off a juror. Sammy Gravano was the fixer.
Sammy the Bull was fixing the trial. He didn't win the trial fair and square.
The judge tried to prevent jury tampering by keeping the panel anonymous. But soon after the trial begins, a juror reaches out to Gravano through an intermediary, offering his not guilty vote in exchange for $60,000. He gets the money, and Gotti gets acquitted.
It shows you how tricky it is with the mob, because we had an anonymous juror. That's a little scary.
Fixed jury or not, some law enforcement officials argue that the U.S. Attorney's Office shouldn't have brought the case against Gotti in the first place. The FBI often assists with federal prosecutions, but this time it withdrew its support entirely. Why did the FBI refuse to help federal prosecutors? The Bureau thought the case was weak, and it opposed prosecution tactics.
When they finally brought that case, it was all old stuff. They had some horrible witnesses.
The prosecution's case largely depended on the testimony of mob informants, who were viewed as untrustworthy. During her investigation, Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Jackalone learns that one of Gotti's co-defendants, Wilfred Willie Boy Johnson, is a major informant for the FBI. In an effort to force Johnson to testify, Jackalone plays hardball and exposes him in court as a mob rat. Willie Boy still refuses to take the stand. Even so, his exposure leads to his murder on Gotti's orders, 18 months later. The loss of a top informant is only one of the hurdles now facing the FBI. Agents assigned to Gotti's case also blame the press for making him harder to catch. How did the media spotlight hurt the FBI's investigation? With Gotti's name constantly in the news, agents find fewer informants and would-be witnesses willing to come forward.
It posed a significant problem for us because there are fewer and fewer people who would be inclined to want to help us in any way, shape, or form, either because they legitimately kind of like the guy or they're really afraid of him.
Those trying to bring Gotti down believe the stories about him are one-sided.
They did make him out to be a superhero, where, to me, as a law enforcement, he was a criminal.
Mr. Gotti was a guy who'd been to jail for shooting a man in the gut in a bar, but you never heard about that because that wasn't what the media thought the people wanted.
Some journalists argue they're just reporting the facts.
John Gotti was acquitted. You can't change that. We didn't make him a household word. He and the failure of the government to convict him is what helped propel him into the big name that he was.
Both sides agree that media coverage of Gotti placed additional pressure on federal crime fighters.
When Gotti was showing up on the covers of magazines, the word came from the Justice Department, get this guy.
Gotti's highly publicized courtroom victories proved to be a turning point in the fight to bring him down. Under increasing pressure, the New York's FBI office makes Gotti its top priority. Agents install a $100,000 video camera in an apartment 2 blocks away from the Ravenite. Now they can record clear images of mobsters at Gotti's weekly meetings. Why did Gotti start holding these regular meetings? To test the allegiance of Gambino family members.
It was a little bit tougher to plot behind his back if they're always kind of around one another and everybody's hearing what everybody else is talking about.
Through these meetings, Gotti also learns about the inner workings of the family. He secures a cut of each of his captains' illegal earnings. Ultimately, Gotti's move is a foolish one. It allows the FBI to videotape those who enter or exit the club. However, the tapes contain no incriminating conversation. Did the silent tapes help build a case against Gotti? Yes, they helped prove a criminal organization was at work. Once prosecutors establish the existence of an active criminal organization, they can make use of a powerful legal weapon. It's a federal law called RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Under RICO, prosecutors are able to go after individuals who are part of an organization that is committing crimes.
Getting them together at meetings would go a long way towards putting that they're together and they may be in the same enterprise.
But while Gotti makes it easy for agents to videotape his associates, he still makes it difficult to bug his most sensitive conversations.
John got up and walked away from the area where we had the bug and the Ravenite a number of occasions. We could tell he was going someplace else.
The FBI is getting closer, and Gotti's time as a free man will soon come to an end.
You think I would tolerate any of this crap if I was home?
How the government finally got their man is next, in the conclusion of The Final Report. April 1989, New York City. FBI agents have planted bugging devices in John Gotti's headquarters, the Ravenite Social Club. But they have trouble capturing incriminating conversations. Gotti, it seems, keeps leaving the room. Where was Gotti going to hold his conversations? To an apartment above the Ravenite. FBI agent George Gabriel learns about it from an informant.
I said, listen, we're hearing this guy disappear. Is there someplace else in the building that he's going? And it came back that there was an apartment 2 stories above the club that he was going to have these really secret meetings.
This apartment, number 10, is occupied by the widow of a Gambino soldier. The FBI decides to bug the apartment as well. November 21st, 1989. In the middle of the night, 2 members of an FBI tech squad break into the widow's apartment while she's away. They plant a bug in the living room. Within 3 months, the Bureau is predicting Gotti's downfall. Why was the FBI so confident? The Bureau recorded Gotti clearly discussing murder and other crimes.
You tell this punk, I meet John Gotti tonight, you'll sever your mother head off.
These tapes lead to the arrest of Gotti and his 2 top lieutenants, Sammy the Bull Gravano and Frank Lacasio. February 17th, 1992. Prosecutors play the tapes in court. For the first time, a jury can clearly hear the Teflon Don describing murders that he ordered.
And he's got to get whacked. You want to challenge the administration? Well, you will meet the challenge. And you're going to, mother.
On the tape, Gotti discusses the murders of 3 Gambino family members, including Robert DiBernardo, or DB. Gotti ordered the man killed shortly after Paul Castellano's assassination.
DB got whacked. They told me a story. I whacked. I knew why it was being done.
The revelations on the tapes are stunning. So is the courtroom testimony of Sammy the Bull Gravano. It's the first time such a high-level mobster has broken the mafia's code of silence against his own boss. Why did Gravano now turn against Gotti? Gravano no longer trusted Gotti and was afraid of becoming the fall guy. At a pre-trial hearing, prosecutors play some of the government's Ravenite tapes for the first time. In one conversation, Gravano hears Gotti talking behind his back. The Don places the blame for the murder of Gambino soldier Louis De Bono squarely on Sammy. Tape statements like these convince Gravano to abandon his boss and try to save himself.
Not only did he hear himself being implicated in these murders, he also got to see the treachery that John Gotti was capable of.
Gravano testifies for 9 days, revealing his ties to 19 murders. Considering his violent past, many wondered whether Gravano would be a credible witness. How could the jury trust Gravano's testimony? He admitted to his crimes and told the jury about the deal he struck with prosecutors. At trial, prosecutors introduced Gravano as a murderer. They explain that Sammy the Bull faces severe penalties if he is caught lying on the stand.
We were able to establish with the jury that it was in his self-interest to tell the truth, because if we caught him in one lie, his deal was off and he goes to jail for the rest of his life without parole.
April 2nd, 1992. Gotti is convicted on all counts. He is sentenced to life in prison without parole. The sentencing brings to a close a splashy chapter in the Mafia's history. It also re-energizes the government's attack on the mob. Why was Gotti's conviction a turning point in the fight against organized crime? It led to future convictions around the country. Former federal prosecutor Patrick Cotter tells the final report, the Gotti conviction paved the way for prosecutions in other cities.
When we took down Gotti, we took down the most visible but also the most powerful mobster in the country. Plus, we also took a good shot at New Jersey, Connecticut, Philadelphia, Boston. Other prosecutors there did great work.
In the 2 years after Gotti's conviction, Sammy the Bull Gravano's revelations helped the government convict more than 36 gangsters, drug dealers, and corrupt union officials.
He was sort of like, if you will, a nuclear bomb. All you had to do was point him at people, and they would plead guilty.
Gravano served only 5 years in prison, then went into the witness protection program. This ushered in an era when top-level mobsters began dropping their codes of omerta, or silence.
Organized crime's success was its reliance on omerta, the secrecy of the organization, the fact that you can trust your fellow wise guy not to give you up in your criminal conduct. Today, that trust no longer exists.
The final report on getting Gotti includes some surprising statistics. Since Gotti was sent to prison, more than 225 Gambino family members have been put behind bars, including 11 bosses and top lieutenants. After more than 2 decades of prosecutions, the mafia no longer controls the leadership of the nation's Big Four labor unions. They do, however, still exert their influence by infiltrating at the local level. Although crime fighters agree the Gambino family has been significantly weakened since the days of Gotti, it is still one of the richest and most powerful criminal organizations in the United States. The family is worth hundreds of millions of dollars and has a workforce of 200 captains and soldiers and more than 3,000 associates. As for the 2 men who once ruled the Gambino crime family with such brutality, in 2001, Sammy the Bull Gravano went back to prison after pleading guilty to drug conspiracy charges. He was sentenced to 20 years at the Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. John Gotti was sent to the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, where he continued to run the Gambino family by giving orders to his son, John. In 1996, the jailed Gotti stepped down under pressure from the other mob bosses. In 1999, Daily News journalist Jerry Capisi obtained 4 hours of prison video footage showing the elder John Gotti visiting with daughter Victoria and his brother Peter. The video offers a rare window on the Don's feelings about his future.
Right now I'm cursed. I'm stuck in this jail here, and that's the end of it. You know, there's nothing I can do about it.
He was angry for being in the position he was in and in despair over the fact that there was never going to be a day when he was going to walk outside as a free man once again.
You know why I'm here? It took them $80 million in 3 lying cases and 7 rats that killed 100 people in the witness protection program to finally frame me. You understand?
It was amazing. He kept saying over and over how much mail he gets from people around the country, from people all over the world.
I got a letter from an 8-year-old kid. An 8-year-old kid. He says, I like your family values. It's a kid from Iowa. Probably got to get up in the morning and go feed cows and shovel horse.
On June 10th, 2002, after serving 10 years, John Gotti died of cancer in a prison hospital. Back in Queens, New York, hundreds turned out to watch his funeral procession. By 2003, the government convicted Gotti's 2 brothers, Peter and Richard, on mob-related charges. His son John served 6.5 years in prison for racketeering. To date, he has been in court 3 more times on RICO charges. Each case ended in a mistrial. Law enforcement officials believe that the current acting Gambino boss is John Jackie Nose D'Amico, who was one of Gotti's close associates. Though the mob still remains a significant priority for the FBI, current events have pushed it from the top spot.
9/11 obviously changed things dramatically, and the federal law enforcement authorities correctly are much more focused on terrorism.
The number of FBI agents assigned to organized crime units has declined since 2001. Yet despite this reduction, the amount of mob-related cases brought by the Bureau remains steady as agents continue to develop high-level informants.
The mistake will be for somebody to stand up soon and say, look, we won the war against the mob. These guys are resilient.
So resilient, in fact, that some senior FBI officials admit that even the Bureau's best efforts will not be able to eradicate the mafia from American society. Today's mob leaders learned important lessons from Gotti's downfall. No longer are meetings held in view of the public or photo ops given to reporters. Instead, Cosa Nostra is attempting to reclaim its status as a secret organization and return to an era that was destroyed by the Dapper Don.